So the English state has many actors who are implicated in this. This is a banana monarchy.
Is that a Nick Fury original, Banana Monarchy?
Well, look, King Charles had a long association with Jimmy Savile.
Hmm.
Jimmy Savile was his publicist. King Charles was a great friend of Sir Nicholas Fairbairn, who was the lover of Esther Ransom, who set up Childline. And Sir Nicholas Fairbairn is an extensive paedophile, friends with Sir Cyril Smith, who became a knight of the realm as proposed by the first presiding officer, Lord David Steele, who had known for decades that Cyril Smith was a paedophile and proposed him to be knighted.
The Church of England head Justice Welby, who married Prince Harry and Meghan, had to resign over a pedophile scandal.
It's important for viewers outside of England to understand that the Church of England is part of the state. It is the state. In small communities, so wherever you go in England, there is a parish priest. They're part of the community, and they try and ease tensions and so on. And that just spreads through England. So the Archbishop had to resign over many decades of covering up paedophile abuse scandals.
Mm.
And there was an ongoing inquiry that the Church of England had sponsored into the issue, which the Church of England the previous year had sacked because it was turning over too many stones. So the leading abuse investigator, Ms. Navinda, she's called on the Bishop of York to resign. Now, the Bishop of York, Stephen Cotterill, he had previously welcomed Welby's resignation, saying it was the right thing to do. And this woman has said that he has to go because of his role in covering up abuse. So there's a big question there as to why the government isn't taking action. And this comes on the back of revelations that Sir Keir Starmer, when he was director of public prosecutions, decides not to prosecute Jimmy Savile, despite everyone knowing he was a paedophile. And Gravel Jera, likewise. And now those files have gone missing. The fact that the government is refusing a national inquiry it is not wholly unrelated to the loss of the pay.
My God.
All I can say is that I think that Sir Keir is very heavily compromised.
Well, a friend of the show, Alexander McKay, would say you don't get to be in a top position in the British state unless you are controllable or like a safe bet. So either he's compromised or compromisable.
Yes, I mean, it's the old question: to whom do you account?
Mhm.
And the police account to higher authorities. They can be sacked, senior civil servants and senior members of parliament. And if those people are part of the paedophile ring, then there's no chance of if they have friends who are. So opportunities match the thief. If you have a collapse in safeguarding, these things happen. I mean, when Jimmy Savile was a middle-aged man, his angle for procuring children would be a charity fundraiser. He had a room in a hospital in Leeds, and the authorities knew that he was using that room to go and rape children. And they decided to turn a blind eye to that because he was raising millions of pounds for a hospital. The paedophiles who are buying, prostituting these children, they don't care who they are buying them from as long as they can buy them. And I think the fact that the government was squeamish about doing a national public inquiry, despite the obvious political pressure to do so, suggests that
They don't have a good idea about what's all going to come flying out of the closet.
So I think the concern from most of the observers is that there are skeletons in the cupboard in terms of the British establishment on these so-called Asian grooming gangs. And because who are they procuring, who are they prostituting girls for? Who is paying for these child prostitutes? I think we need to understand the boarding school system in the United Kingdom, which is really only for the ruling class.
Mm.
And it starts with the loss of Anjou and the Wars of the Roses. England has lost its empire. It has to remodel itself into a nation fit for empire. That system is then exported to Scotland once there's the Union of the Crowns and so on. And you have these elite boarding schools set up in Scotland as well. They consciously styled this system on the Spartan Agoge system, where children were systematically brutalized and sexually terrorized in order to make them fit for administering empire.
Oh my goodness. Can you say that again for me? I wasn't expecting
So
that.
after the Wars of the Roses, when the Tudors emerge as the victors of that 30-year internecine ruling
Okay.
class battle,
Okay.
ultimately stemmed by the loss of England's empire in France, England consciously, ideologically reconstructs itself as a kingdom, whereby they create elite boarding schools
Mm.
for the ruling class
Okay.
to try and systematically brutalize and sexually terrorize ruling class children, modeled on the Spartan Agoge system. It's a bizarre thing, but it's why today the British ruling class is more riddled with paedophiles than any other ruling class. And these institutions, like the one King Charles went to, Gordonston,
Mm.
are knowingly set up with paedophiles running them. This is something that has been a conscious policy of the British state for a long time. For example, there's a recent book, Wounded Leaders, from a ruling class man who went through one of these boarding school institutions. And what happens is that the individuals come out with a shallow effect. They
Mm.
have to put on a face in order to survive. And we all know the phrase taking the biscuit, for example, which describes a form of sexual terrorism that happens in
Yeah.
these institutions. They don't provide a good standard of education. That's not their role. Their role is to link ruling class individuals together in a trauma bond and then have them uh, have the ability to have a face in the face of terror. So if you're off to run some far-flung corner of Africa and there's a local uprising, it doesn't rip your knitting. It also makes you quite a
Mhm.
fragile individual in other
Mhm.
ways. A classic of the form is
Mhm.
Boris Johnson, whose name isn't Boris. His name's Alexander, but he's
Yeah.
Boris the public, and he puts on a face, but he's a womanizing rapist. You know, that's what he is.
Allegedly.
Actually, not allegedly.
Okay, well, I don't want to get you in trouble for defamation. So both Boris Johnson and David Cameron were victims of that at Eton.
Almost all the ruling class in Britain is it's how they form themselves, and you need to ask yourself why the prime ministers of the country only come from one or two schools.
Mhm.
They stick together. I mean,
Yeah.
David Cameron, for example, had two cabinets. He had his official cabinet, which was very diverse. That's how Kemi Badenoch got a start.
Mhm.
And then he had his private cabinet, who were his old Victorian chums, and they
Mhm.
made the real decisions.
Basically, what you're saying is that part of the education that goes on at these elite boarding schools in Britain is basically about breaking down these boys so that they're pliable and maybe sociopathic or
Yeah.
able to disassociate. Or usually, the parents went to these schools as well, so they know what they're sending their kids off to.
Well, women not so much. The ruling class of Britain really hate their women, really hate them because mother wasn't there for me. The
Yeah.
role of a mother is not to be a caregiver. It's to wear dresses and
Mhm.
talk dinner parties. It's
Yeah.
really meant, but
Yeah.
nothing like what the ordinary life experience of most
Mhm.
people in these islands are.
Mhm.
So it's a different world, and they have consciously messed themselves up.
Mhm. You hear whispers. I just thought it was a hazing thing, but I didn't realize it was baked in the cake. That it was that demonic, like creating orcs or something.
Well, you have to imagine the society that emerged out of 30 brutal years where most of the ruling class were killed, the most horrendous battle in England, tens of thousands dead in one day, in a society that wasn't like now. It wasn't a capitalist country with millions of people. And
Mhm.
so they had this conscious attempt to remodel themselves as an empire. The Tudors, that was their political project. And this is the result, the way they educate their children. Inculcates pedophilia into the top of society. And we need systemic social change if we want to address these things.